I think Dhanush has a question. Uh, in what ways can children realistically teach their parents and adults about climate change on a daily basis? I think this is a great question because I have personally met children uh, uh, who've actually taken action. Firstly, when you come towards the end of this book, you'll find a chapter where there are lots of children talking. And every child who's talking, while they are fictional in the book, they're actual questions and answers that have come from children across India, including students of Parikrama School. And the thing is that children have a superpower, just like the Avengers. When children, like parents and adults, a lot of our lives is spent around thinking about our children's future. And if you tell your parents and your teachers that this is a future that you want, then they have to listen to it. And one of the things that I've seen children do in very cool ways is they have they've made their schools a plastic free zone, which means anyone who comes with a plastic has to be fined. They've done audits of their schools and houses to save energy, to save water. They've started recycling and segregation drives for garbage in their society. These are small steps, yes, but they're very important steps towards becoming responsible citizens. And once you do it, the adults have no choice but to follow. I have more questions. I'm just going to try and see. Okay, first, Mohammad's question. Why did I write Harry Potter in the page? I'm a big Harry Potter fan. I have a whole Harry Potter zone, as you can see behind me. And so I often put in little jokes about other books in my stories, which if you read those books, you will find them easily. So Aisha's asking me, why did I want to write, what made me think to write a book like this? One of the things about A Cloud Called Bhura is I started thinking about it when I was studying climate change. I went to this university in Costa Rica, which is in Central America. And when I was learning about climate change, I was really fascinated by one thing, that while climate change is very, very real, the way it is seen is the way people describe it is how other people choose to see it. So the way media reports this is how it impacts people. The way politicians talk about it is the way it impacts the voters. And I wanted to write a story about how people react to climate change, in which Bhura becomes the metaphor for climate change, and how everybody reacts to it, how it becomes a confusing thing, even though it's very real and present. Sometimes you just want to ignore the cloud hanging about you. And that's how I wrote this book, to try and understand how humans react to something that's very, very scary. Fatima is asking, how can we as children change the view of our window from pollution all around to green trees and birds chirping to their fullest? That is such a great question. I mean, I think there are many little things you can do, as all of you have said. Plant more trees. If there are trees being cut in your area, find out why they're being cut. Is everything legal about that? Start your own little balcony garden or little window garden, and you will be very amazed by the kind of biodiversity you can actually attract just from having having plants outside your house. So the little steps, and you are the one who's responsible for your area, so it comes down to you. Aniket is asking, how many books have I written? What inspired you to write books? I've written quite a few books now. I started writing very late in life, but Bhura is my first fiction book, and my second fiction book is called Savi and the Memory Keeper, and it's about a talking tree. And talking plants, and it's set in a fictional city called Shajarpur, which has the perfect climate of all. Then I love what Samuel said. He said that sometimes in science, asking silly questions leads to great inventions, and children do exactly that. Um, Daisy is asking, what would I do in a situation where Bhura's on top of me? I would definitely first work with, go find scientists who have the answers or who are asking the right questions. But here's the thing, I'm a writer. So we all do things in our own way. Not everyone can do everything. For instance, you all have homework to do also. So as a writer, I feel my responsibility would be to write about the situation in a way that does not spread misinformation, that gives the correct facts, and also informs in a way that's engaging and not scary. Uh, what else? What else? What have I missed? So the children in Bhura Clouders, the 4 children are imaginary, but like I said, there's one chapter where all the children come from real life, and I think they're all very cool. Anurag's asking that I took 6 years to write this book. What was the research process? How did I come to certain conclusion? How did I know credible sources from nonsense? Such a great scientist question that is. I have a very, very long research process. If I decide to write about something, I read up as much as I can. My last book is about the hidden life of trees. And so I read everything about trees. For Bhura, I read everything about climate change, but I also read papers on the way media dissects climate change, reports climate change, the way politicians view it. I looked at the science. And one of the things that I absolutely love about this book is that Oindri did these illustrations that you can see in the book. And these illustrations basically inform all the research that I found. So for instance, at one point, it becomes so hot in the city that you can actually fry an egg in the tarmac. And so these are all actually from real stories that have happened, or they're from research that I've done. So I file away all my research. One of the things that I love doing when I'm imagining a new world, and in this case, it was the world of these 4 children along with Bhura Clouders, is I draw it out. I'm not very good at drawing, which is why I work with illustrators who are very good at drawing. So I draw it out and I put it in front of me, in front of the wall I'm sitting by my desk. And so it always reminds me who are the people, who are the characters, what is the place of the story. Credible sources, I always get my stories fact checked. And my friends, who a lot of them who are naturalists, a lot of them who do work in climate change, they look at these stories and they tell me if something is correct, something's not correct. But the fun thing about fiction is that I can also take a little bit of leap of imagination, and that's why I love writing fiction. Yes, the Asian brown cloud, a lot of you have questions about it. It is about South Asia, and that includes India. And it's very much a phenomena that happens, and you can see it through satellite imagery. What else? So then, oh, Anirudh has a sparrow hotel in his balcony, which is very cool. Sarina, that's a great question. Sarina's asked if, would you think that trying to break stereotypes about climate change and related topics could be beneficial to us on a community level? Yes, yes, please. And I think all of you said that one of the things, if Bhura Clouders was to come and hover on your city, you want to do spread awareness. So first thing is inform yourself about what is happening. The second thing would be to then spread that information in a way that's positive. the thing about about human beings now, and I'm going to tell you this, it's very important, is that the moment we get bad news, we shut off. We are like, oh, we can't do anything about it, so too bad. So, which is why it's very important that when we are talking about climate change, when we're talking about stereotypes and related topics, we have to present it in a positive manner, that here's what we can do to change things, because we have accelerated climate change today in on Earth's history. We are the only ones who can make the change happen. There's only this much that trees can do, right? So the trees and all the other climate regulation functions of planet Earth, the currents and the oceans and all of that, there's only this much they can do given the speed with which we are creating climate change. I have lots more questions, and I am going to ask some. Do you want me to answer more questions? Do you want me to read a little bit? Okay. Okay. I'm going to read to you from a very favorite part of my book. We have 10 minutes, so I'm and then I'll come back to, since majority is saying reading. Okay. Oh no, now it's going to answer questions. Okay, reading. So I'm going to read, and then if we have time, I'll answer a few more questions. So this is like in the middle of the book, as you can see. So what is happening here is that all of, should I read from here or should I? I'm trying to think which part to read. I feel like this would be a spoiler, so I'm not going to read from there. It's okay if it's a spoiler, I think, since you all have the book. So here's what's happened at this point in the book. Burra Cloudus is everywhere. It's grown and grown and grown. And it's very angry. And so the politicians decide to do something. And what something is what you're going to find out. But first, I'm going to read you a little bit from Burra's point of view, where Burra says, you better not shout, you better not pout, because Burra's here to spread fear. And hey, don't blame me. I didn't go on a pollution spree. I didn't say I want this and I want that. It's on your greed that I grew fat. So here's what's happening is that Prashant Humne is somebody who works in the head minister's office, and he's praying. Prashant's lips moved in a prayer. He had just spoken to the group of engineers who had assembled and tested Suck Up 9. They sounded confident. After all, they were from some of the best technology institutions in the country. The machine would suck up the pollution and nanoparticles and all of the chemical things that made up Burra. Just then, a crow flew over their heads, sending a white missile straight down. And it plopped on Sri Sri Nakul Karamchari. He heads the municipality, on his front pocket. And he just stood there, and everyone else ran around him, started cleaning it. And now what Head Minister Ji has done, he's called Pavankumar, who's a very well-known actor, to launch the Suck Up 9 campaign. So Prashant goes and tells Pavanji, we are ready. Pavan strode out wearing his trademark uniform, black coat, chaddis, skinny tight and feathered mask. He paused for a moment and glanced up. From this height, Burra Cloudus was even more terrifying. Its many gases swirled viciously, like a storm waiting to explode upon their heads. The heat was unbearable, as was the stench. Black particles of soot enveloped them, as if monsters had disintegrated in a sci-fi film. He gathered himself. and his superhero action actor name is Takatwar. A cheer rose as Takatwar stepped into a specially constructed glass box and greeted everyone. Music played, and he broke out into a dance. Tu to gaya o re bura, mujhse panga na le bura, mujhse koi nahi bura, ja re bura. It was a strange dance to a stranger chorus of bura, 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 bura. And since he could barely move in the box, he managed to do a few moves jerkily. Now, after this, what they do is they unveil the machine. Thank you so much. This is on page number 148. The machine is made with ultralight polypropylethylene monosodium stearate. And it looks like this vacuum cleaner. It has one long hose and lots of screws and buttons poking out of it. And at the back of it, there's this giant trash bag, which is supposed to hold all the particles and effluents, sucking everything in. Now, okay, I'm just going to skip a few pages ahead. Jatin, one of the chief engineers, pulled out a complicated looking extension of Suck Up 9. He aimed it at the sky, ready for his Suck Up 9 to suck up Bura Cloudus. The hose was as long as a python, and his team formed a line, letting it out slowly. A team member kicked up a lever and the vacuum cleaner revved up. Whoosh! Everyone watched as the machine started sucking up the dust and sooty particles around them. A surge of hope washed over Prashant. He could see the dust pumping up from the atmosphere into the giant trash bag as it ballooned up. The air around the terrace seemed cleaner already. He allowed himself a sliver of smile. Everyone crossed their fingers. But just then they realized Jatin was struggling with Suck Up 9, almost as if a tug of war was going on between the engineer and the cloud. Jatin was sweating profusely, his face purple from the effort. He felt like his arms would be wrenched out of the socket as he held onto the machine. Was Suck Up 9 being sucked up? And his team struggled to hold the hose steady. The machine started shuddering violently, making urgent beeping sounds. Help! Yelled Jatin. Someone from his team beckoned wildly and everybody ran out and crowded around Suck Up 9, holding on to it, trying to keep the machine from thudding. As the machine started running forward, losing the tug of war to Bura, some of them flung themselves onto the machine. Suck Up 9 jumped. A tremendous feat considering elephants don't jump. Parts were tossed in the air and suddenly it slowed down. The trash bag exploded, engulfing the crew in the dust and soot all over again. Only this time they were bathed in it. Coughing and wheezing, the crew held on valiantly. They couldn't breathe. They couldn't see anything. And Prashant, who was also holding onto the machine, yelled, "Come on, we can do this!" With a mighty sound, like someone had stomped on a metal dustbin. Rather, 10 elephants had stomped on 10 dustbins. Suck Up 9 crumpled like a flimsy piece of tissue paper. The python-like hose was whipped out of their hands and swallowed by Bura Cloudus. A single screw fell out desolately, falling with a dull thud on the terrace. Jatin almost fell off, but his crew managed to hold on to him. Everyone watched in horrified silence as Bura Cloudus rumbled and expanded. The cloud doubled in size, heaving closer to the ground. The brown haze pressed on them. Everything became fuzzier. Operation Suck Up 9 was a resounding failure, or as the media put it, it sucked. You'll have to read on to know what happens next. All right. How are we doing on time?
We have 2 more minutes, Akka.
Okay. I thank you, Mirza. I'm glad that you will be reading this book, and I think Dhanush has a great. Okay, Man, there are a number of climate change deniers. How would you convince them, and what would you say them to make them believe that climate change is real? Here's the thing. If you were to look at it scientifically, the 97% of scientists have a consensus on this. And my thing is that, like I said, do what you can do. I have a friend whose name is Rohan Chakravarti. He draws cartoons about wildlife, about environment, about climate change. So he uses art to tell people about climate change. I use stories. Dr. Chandni uses science and data to tell what is happening. So you talk to people in the way that you know best, because you can then persuade them with the right facts and the right knowledge. And for me, I feel like one of the most important things is art. So whether it's writing, whether it's drawing, whether it's walking into walking into forests, all of them are important ways of tackling climate change in your own way. And yeah, so
I'm sure a lot of you have questions, and due to time constraint, we'll not be able to answer all those questions. So what you can do instead is send your mails over a mail. I'm sorry, send your questions over a mail. So we're going to send them to Bijal, and then she's going to answer them for you. And for now, we will have to move ahead. So once again, thank you so much, Bijal. That was a fabulous presentation. There was just so much energy throughout the session. It was very interactive. It was very fun filled. So thank you so much for that